All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Lexie. I am a speech pathologist and feeding therapist here at Chicago Pediatric Therapy and Wellness Center. We are on the last section of the feeding series. We've already talked about picky eating and sensory challenges within feeding. And now we're going to wrap up the series with feeding practices and direct resources. So let's get started. All right. The first thing we're going to talk about is environmental strategies. So when we are looking at feeding, we always want to make sure that the positioning is, here is kind of an example. We want to support the child to have good postural support to allow them to focus on those oral motor skills that are needed for engaging with new foods. So the rule of thumb is kind of 90, 90, 90. We want feet touching the ground on the floor. We want knees at 90 degrees, kind of hips at 90 degrees, and then your arms kind of at 92. If they are set up in that position, it's going to set them up for the best success for feeding. The other thing we want to talk about is distractions. So when we're sitting at the mealtime or sitting at the table for mealtime with no distractions, that's going to help send the message that mealtime is for eating and socializing. We want to limit distractions as much as possible to kind of help with that. We want to eliminate a messy table, an iPad, or kind of television. Those are some of the distractions that we want to limit as much as possible. Mealtime routines. It's very important that we establish a predictable routine with mealtime to create that safe and comfortable environment for the child. A mealtime routine that I like to start with is I like to have the kid go wash their hands, then help me set up the plate and the utensils. And then at the end, I like them to take those plates and utensils to the sink and leave them in there to be washed. Or if they're old enough, they can even help you load the dishwasher. As far as the feeding schedule goes, we want to get them on a schedule to avoid grazing. Typically, that schedule will start about 30 minutes or an hour after that child is awake and be every 2.5 hours have a snack or a meal time in there. We really want to stick to that schedule as much as possible to help that child be successful with mealtime. Language around mealtime is very important. We want to model interactions with new foods in a silly, fun, and achievable way to encourage food exploration. We want to make sure that we use language without a pressure situation. We really want to avoid telling that child what to do and focus on kind of modeling language on what we're doing. So narrating the mealtime routine. We always hear, take a bite. But saying taking a bite can actually backfire when it comes to helping your child try new foods. It puts a lot of pressure on that situation and might make them feel a little unsafe and uncomfortable. Other things that we could say instead of take a bite, here are some examples. I can crunch the carrot with my back teeth. Do you think it's crunchy or soft? I wonder if this is salty or sweet. My broccoli looks like a paintbrush. Kind of like those no pressure situations, like we talked about a little bit ago, but we really want to eliminate those. We want to maintain a low pressure environment as much as possible and have there not be an expectation for that child to eat any of the foods. Repeated exposure to novel foods will help that child decide if they like it or want to try it. And the pressure of a situation could kind of limit that exposure and opportunities. I always like to suggest to families some low pressure environment opportunities or are trying new foods at a place like Costco or Trader Joe's. Sometimes they have those samples lying around and kids are more willing to try. It's the perfect opportunity because it's a small amount. And no one is telling them that they have to try it. And they are usually it's a novel food, so they're always a little more interested in it as well. Family style meals is kind of when um, you would serve the meal in the middle of the table and allow them to kind of pick and choose what they want to add to their plate. So family style meals allow them to feel in control and can often lead them to more exploration of the new foods. They get to pick their portion and they get to pick the items that are on there. It's a great way to kind of, like we just talked about too, that low pressure environment. Incorporating food play into daily routines is great for that repeated exposure. I'm sure we've all been told at one point, do not play with your food. However, food play is actually a really good way to introduce picky eaters to new foods, decrease those sensory sensitivities, and create a fun and positive association with mealtime. These food play activities can be done outside of mealtime as well. I actually really encourage that to kind of decrease the pressure. Here are just some ideas that I have done with kids in sessions. So you can use your fingers or brushes to paint with sauces, yogurts, or purees. You can place food into a Ziploc bag for safe tactile exploration if the child is not ready to touch the food with their hands. You could have a picnic or a tea party with their favorite stuffed animal or action figures. Always more fun to eat with friends. You can use puppets to model eating foods. We have a dragon puppet that I love to use with the kids. They love to feed the puppet and hold on to it while they are eating as well. You can use cookie cutters to make fun shapes with different fruits, breads, vegetables, meats, and cheeses. You can have cars or trucks drive through sauces to make fun tracks. If your child's a little bit older, you can take turns being a waiter or a waitress, or even a cashier at a pretend restaurant, and you can order foods or serve the food too. You can practice being the chef by mixing, pouring, and plating and spreading all the foods. One other thing that I love to do is involve the kid in meal preparation. So at the clinic, that could look like the kid helping me heat up their chicken nuggets in the microwave or heating up a piece of like a pizza bagel in the toaster oven. At home, a great opportunity for you guys would be to go grocery shopping and take that child with you. It'll help them learn about the new foods that are being presented at mealtime. Important to note that you do not have to take the child to the grocery store every time, as that can be very time consuming. But create a grocery list ahead of time by yourself or with the child and keep it short. So maybe pick a time that you're going to the store for like 3 or 4 things and then have them help you find those foods, add them to the cart, and talk about the different characteristics of them. So the color, the texture, the temperature, and the taste of them. The other thing that you can do at home, like I said, a few examples of what we can do here, but at home you would really get a lot more opportunities with it. So they can help in the kitchen. It's really great for them to experience the process of cooking to kind of understand how food is being transformed as it's cooked and to familiarize their senses to the different noises, feels, and smells of the kitchen. So they could help you pour ingredients into bowls. They could rinse the fruits and vegetables. They could help you crack an egg, set the temperature on the oven. Different things like that are some great examples that you can incorporate at home. Something else that I always like to mention is food jags. A food jag is when a child eats the same food prepared the same way every day. and possibly at every meal. The problem with food jags is that children eventually kind of get burned out on those, and then they're either permanently lost or temporarily lost from that child's food repertoire. We can make simple changes to the foods to help with these food jags. Here is kind of some examples, food chaining. So we would make small and simple changes. So it starts with a food that they like, and then we're using those small changes to work towards a new food. So to kind of do this, you would create a list of all the different foods and drinks that your child consistently accepts. If you're interested in this, we do have a great list here. Some of you might have already seen it. It might have been sent home by a feeding therapist here, but it's a great list that has them categorized into different areas, just to help you really think about all the foods and drinks that they do accept. You could then take that list and look for a pattern in the flavor, the texture, the appearance, and the temperature. Sometimes your kid might like foods that are hot, or they might like sweet foods or crunchy foods. They might like foods that are a certain color, so like tan or beige. And then you'll go from there and you'll offer a new food and drink that kind of matches one of those patterns. We want to kind of change one property at a time and not be super overwhelming. So the change should be so small that they barely even notice. A great example that I can think of right now that I recently was working on is if a kid eats a certain kind of French fry, you could change that slightly. You could either change it by the flavor, and you could get a sweet potato fry. You want it to be the same kind of shape and appearance, but just kind of change that flavor. Or well, I guess, hold on, let me think. The flavor would be maybe if you took a same fry, but added a seasoning. And then the appearance would kind of be that sweet potato fry. You could do appearance as well. You could do kind of a stick fry to like a waffle fry. That could kind of be an appearance that would be changed. All right. Now we're going to dive into the feeding resources part. So this is the fun part where I feel like you get a lot of direct resources that you can look through at home. There are so many things on social media, and it can be very overwhelming. So I wanted to give you some of my favorite strategies and resources. It's important to remember too that when you're in feeding, not one feeding trick or resource will be appropriate for every child, but there's lots of information and pieces that you can kind of pull from. But when in doubt, always ask your child's feeding therapist. All right, we're going to start with websites. All right, so Chicago Feeding Group is up first. There are tons of free on-demand courses and parent support groups. This is a great community that anyone can join. Let me take you guys to the website. All right, Chicago Feeding Group. A few things to point out on here. There is a provider directory right here. So let's say you are ever moving or find yourself in a different location, you could always look up to see if there's a feeding therapist in your new area. Another great resource on here is they have a lot of on-demand events, and looks like they don't have any upcoming, but they will post all of their events here that you can register for. So it looks like they might still be getting ready to get the new year started. But some of them are free and some of them have a small price. So just watch out for that. Oh, wait. here's some of the on-demand ones. That other section was where the live ones will be posted. But as you can see, some of them have a small price on them. You will find some that are free, but you can find ones that relate to you and your child. They have lots of great courses. The other thing that I wanted to point out that they have on here. We'll see if it loads back, but they have a great parent support group, like I talked about earlier, and you can kind of join that and attend some of those sessions. Oh, here we go. That would kind of be this join our community part. They also have products on here, so different products that they like, which is a great resource as well. All right, let's see. All right, the next one is going to be, before we actually move on, for Chicago Feeding Group, you can actually join their Facebook or their Instagram, and they will typically post when they have a live class. If you're added to their email list too, they always send emails about their live classes. So if you're interested in that, just make sure to kind of join that so you get updates. All right, moving on to Feeding Matters. So Feeding Matters is another great resource. It has a huge resource library. There's also courses and podcasts. This specific website focuses on pediatric feeding disorders. And right here, I just defined pediatric feeding disorder for you. It's impaired oral intake that is not age appropriate and is associated with medical, nutritional, feeding, skill, and or psychosocial dysfunction, estimated to affect more than 1 in 37 children under the age of 5 in the United States. So that's kind of their focus, just as a background. But here is their website. I think their biggest, the biggest strength I feel like of this one is their awesome resource library. They have a ton of different like websites, tons of articles that they would recommend. I love how they have it broken down into each category too. So they have lots of books and different handouts that they have kind of created or gathered from other places. They also have some podcasts, which is cool. So if you're ever just like out driving or cleaning the house or something and need something to listen to, it's a great one to listen to. All right, let's go to Feeding Littles. It's a blog post with tons of helpful articles and tips to kind of support feeding. So let me show you that one. I love this group too because they have a lot of products listed on their website. Oops. They have a little Amazon shop that you can kind of go to that has all of their tools and makes it easy to do, to kind of find. Let me see if but they also have all their blogs right here too. Kind of like the last one, they break it up into different sections, kind of depending on what you might be looking for. Okay, let's see. And of course, I had to throw in CPTWC. We have many blogs on our website that are written by different therapists at the clinics. So let me go to there. Here, if you go up at the top to blogs, we have a lot of different in all areas of, different areas of speech or occupational therapy or physical therapy. So you kind of have to go through them. But it's another great resource that people do not really realize that we have here. But there's some about like bottle refusal, weighted feeds, best cups for oral and speech development. Here's some food play ideas written by an OT. Little holiday snack ideas. So we have a lot of great blogs on here that are already written too. Let's see. All right, so then we're going to go into social media. I am sure most of you probably have some type of Instagram. That is kind of what I picked to kind of give you today. We're not going to look at all of them just for the sake of time, but I will pull up the first one, Feeding Littles. I wrote them on here how you would type them in to Instagram, so you could easily find them. But these are all great resources that you can follow. And then when you're just scrolling on Instagram, they'll kind of pop up. And it might just be, it'll help you just get a lot of information kind of throughout your day. Okay, Feeding Littles is one. Oops. This is kind of to one of the websites we just talked about. So kind of just more Instagram posts that they have, but they have some like snack ideas. It looks like they have some straw drinking tips. There's again a good position or a reminder about positioning. Here's kind of about that mealtime language that we had talked about. So lots of different ideas if you're kind of scrolling. Let me see if we can find another one. Here's Feeding Picky Eaters, which is another great one. Lots of different ideas on how to kind of introduce new foods. So it's kind of cool just to see on like how someone else would do it a little bit too, and just give you a little bit more ideas to kind of implement at home. A great little reminder about portion size. Sometimes if we put too much on their plate, it could be very overwhelming for them. So we want to think about smaller portion sizes just to make it less overwhelming. All right, let's go back into books. There is a few great books. Let me pull up this one. All right, so this one, Adventures in Veggie. I actually have this book and I'm happy to lend it out to you if you're kind of thinking about purchasing it and want to kind of get a look at it. Or we could always make photocopies of it too. It was actually written by a speech pathologist, and I've taken many courses by the speech pathologist. She's great. See if there's pictures, but looks like that might be the only one. But it really takes you through the different vegetables, and I believe they're kind of arranged by season. But it gives you 3 to 4 different ideas for each vegetable. And as we have learned over kind of the feeding series, exposure and play are so important during or for mealtime. So I think one of the examples they give in the book is broccoli. So they give an idea for you to play with it and then cook it into a meal and even like make it into a dessert. So lots of different ways to kind of explore with the same food. All right, let's look at Beyond a Bite. Beyond a Bite and Play with Your Food are pretty similar. Looks like looks like they only have these 2 photos too, but this is Beyond a Bite. It really shows you different ways to expose kids to new foods. you're introducing kids to these foods away from the table. So by the time they get to the table, they've already had that exposure and they're ready to interact and play with it. It's a really good positive parent-child experience too. All right, let's go into some different products. We are going to talk about products. These are, I just want to give a reminder that these are absolutely not products that you need. But oftentimes at the clinic, we get a lot of families that are asking about fun products to make feeding a little bit more fun. So these are just some products that I will bring into sessions that I thought I would share. We have these at the clinic. The kids love them. Little construction utensils. You can even introduce utensils away from the dinner table to help them kind of get comfortable with them. There are tons of different utensils out there. You do not need like these specific construction ones. I just picked kind of the pair that we have here, but there's lots of different options that you'll find. You could use them for food play and mealtime. Let's see. Let's do, here's a similar one. So rather than construction, these have little animals on them. You can kind of pick what animal's your favorite or your child's favorite and kind of explore it that way. Let's see. All right, here are little carrot ones, so kind of similar, but slightly different. And then these ones, I love these for many different reasons. Okay, one of the reasons I love these is because they're going to be novel for the kid. So it just helps them feel explore with something different. The other reason I love them is it's going to allow the child to get a really small amount to help with exploration. They're able to kind of control where that food is going in their mouth and where it's like being placed to make them feel more safe because it's such a small amount. In sessions here, I use toothpicks a lot in sessions to kind of help with that, but these are just a little more fun version of toothpicks. All right, let's see. Here are some fun things to help with food play. Let's look at the cutters first. All right, we have these at the clinic too. Kids love them. As we've mentioned lots of times before, the food play is very, very important, and it helps with exposure outside of mealtime and helps them feel more comfortable. At the clinic, we use these a lot with crunchy foods or like granola bars. We'll have kids pick the tool that they want to use, and then make a different shape with it. It allows them to be a little bit more in control of a situation that's a little bit more difficult. They also make these in letters if your child is more interested in letters than different shapes. So that's pretty cool too. Oops. Here are some different like placemats that they could use kind of to make that a little more fun. Little baking set to kind of, as we mentioned earlier, like talking about having them involved in the kitchen and becoming familiar with all those utensils and things that are used. This is a great little kit. Um, the other thing that you guys can just use from your own kitchen, different like tongs, ladles, large spoons, paint and paper. I love this one. I love having the kid like take I'm trying like an apple or a pepper and kind of cut it in half, and you get to explore like the outside and the inside, and then you can take paint and kind of dip it in there and kind of have them go around on some paper too. Uh, all right, here's some more that could kind of be for mealtime. All right, this is kind of a dinner plate. There's lots of different variations of it. These seem to be different characters, but there's lots of different variations. The one thing I want to say about this plate is we kind of just want to be careful about how it is set up. I never want parents to put non-preferred food on the plate and make it a pressure situation for that kid. We want the child to feel comfortable, and kind of adding that non-preferred food makes them feel unsafe and uncomfortable. And we don't want to create that with this plate. So if you use this, I would always suggest having the child pick what foods go in each compartment. It's totally fine if there is nothing non-preferred on their plate. You could even put the non-preferred food like on the police car in this example, or on the helicopter. So it's kind of nearby, but it's not in one of those compartments that they would eat and kind of move around the plate. Sometimes in these situations, if you put a non-preferred food in there, you might be forcing a kid to take a small bite just to get through it. But they're not really learning to interact with that new food. They're just doing it to get the reward at the end. The other thing I always want to say about this plate is I always make sure at the end, that kind of last compartment, that it's not really a dessert. You don't want to make it, you have to finish all this food and then you get a cookie. That just kind of doesn't help with the relationship with food. And in my mind, food is food. So we just want to make sure that they kind of have that positive relationship with it. Here are some other things. This little oops, taco holder. Super cute. Just make mealtime a little more fun. You can even put other things in here too. They don't have to be tacos. Just kind of how they're sold, but you can be creative and put anything in them. Some straws. All right, some silly straws. These are fun. They're great for building strength, as they require a lot of suction to kind of get that liquid up. A lot of times you might hear a therapist talk about kind of reduced or kind of limited oral motor skills. That could kind of be strength for suctioning. So this could be a great little tool for that. All right. All right, and that is the end. So thank you guys so much for coming. These really are for you guys to help you learn more about feeding. So we hope you really enjoyed it. The presentation and recording will be sent out. You're always welcome to email me or the feeding team with any questions. If your child already receives feeding therapy, you can reach out to that specific feeding therapist, but we are here to help and answer any questions that you guys may have.